She didn't shout. She didn't react. Yet, when the moment came, her silence spoke louder than any words could. Tonight, you'll witness how one woman's calmness, paired with strategic timing, completely shifted the balance in a charged public confrontation. The hall buzzed long before anyone stepped on stage. People filled every seat, leaning forward, curious, as if the night itself held a secret. It wasn't a gala. It wasn't a political rally. It was something in between, a public debate, open mic, raw and unfiltered. No scripts, no filters, just voices. Barron Ridgewell entered first, tall, poised, like someone who already believed he knew how the night would unfold. His suit was sharp, his nod polite, and he moved through the crowd like a man who expected applause. Even before he earned it, he looked comfortable, too comfortable. Then Jasmine Crown entered, quietly. She didn't draw attention. She didn't need to. She walked with a quiet confidence, like someone who'd been through storms and had learned how to stand still in the middle of one. People who knew her knew this much. Jasmine could not be rattled. For a while, the event moved along like any other. People spoke. The host nodded. Questions came and went. But there was an undercurrent, subtle, only visible if you were looking for it. Barron kept glancing toward Jasmine. A faint smile tugged at his lips. Calculated, curious. Then, the moment came. The host opened the floor to anyone who wanted to speak on identity, respect, and public responsibility. Barron rose immediately, like he'd been waiting for the cue. He walked center stage, composed, confident. The room turned its attention to him with ease. He started broad, general, polite, talking about public behavior, the importance of truth, how people should present themselves. Then came the shift, a change in tone, not obvious, not loud, but deliberate enough that people tuned in more sharply. Barron turned, just slightly, in Jasmine's direction. With all the discussions we have about where people come from, he said smoothly, it's interesting how some people claim one thing, when their appearance suggests a heritage they don't talk about. A beat of silence. The words weren't an outright attack, but everyone knew what he meant. He added, with a smile too smooth to be innocent, sometimes you can just see things others try to hide. The room tensed. People glanced at Jasmine. Others looked at Barron with a mix of disbelief and discomfort. It was a veiled jab, aimed at her skin color, her heritage, wrapped in casual phrasing that could be denied if challenged. Subtle enough to appear civil, sharp enough to cut. Jasmine didn't flinch, not a twitch, not a sigh, nothing. She simply sat, calm, collected, watching him. Barron expected a reaction. He got silence. And that silence, it echoed louder than his words. It made people uneasy, curious, nervous. The host glanced between them. Barron gave a slow shrug, pretending it was nothing. But his eyes flicked back to Jasmine, still waiting, watching for a crack. She gave him none. Her stillness was the kind that demanded attention. Barron took a step back, giving space for the next speaker. But the room didn't shift. The energy stayed frozen in place. He thought he had landed a clever strike. He believed he had seized control. He was wrong. Jasmine wasn't rattled. She was waiting. The tension hung in the room like a held breath. Barron stood there, smile still painted on, like a chess player who thought he made a brilliant move, not realizing his opponent hadn't moved yet for a reason. He cleared his throat, tried to regain rhythm. I think what I said needed to be said, he offered. People get too sensitive these days. It's important to speak openly. More shifting in the seats, fewer nods now. People weren't uncomfortable because of Jasmine's silence. They were uneasy because of how powerful it had become. The host tried to move the conversation along, but everyone knew. The moment hadn't passed. It was building. Then, after what felt like a long, breathless wait, Jasmine lifted her head. The room hushed instantly. Barron's body stiffened, subtle but visible. Jasmine didn't smile. She didn't blink excessively. She didn't perform. She simply stood, slowly, gracefully, with precision. And in that moment, the weight in the room shifted entirely. Barron's smile faltered. Jasmine adjusted her sleeve, took a breath, and spoke. You're wondering why I've been quiet. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. Barron blinked, caught off guard by how quickly she took the upper hand with just one sentence. "I stayed quiet," she continued, "because I wanted you to finish." Her voice wasn't soft. It wasn't harsh. It was steady. "I didn't remain quiet because I was bothered," she said. "I remained quiet because before I answer you, I want to share something of my own." She reached into her bag and pulled out a folder, crisp, sealed, ordinary looking, but in that moment, it carried the weight of something extraordinary. Barron's eyes tracked it, his confidence slipping, even if he didn't want to show it. Jasmine said, "I brought this in case someone pushed me to a place I don't like going." She didn't raise her voice. She didn't threaten, but every word was a warning, calm and clear. Barron shifted, his fingers twitching slightly. "I didn't do this out of curiosity," she said. "I did it because when people throw personal insults, they usually hope the person being hit has nothing to throw back." She lifted the first page. The audience leaned forward. "You wanted to talk about identity?" Jasmine asked. "Let's talk about it fully." She paused, looking directly at Barron. "These reports show," she said, "that Melania is not your biological mother." The words detonated. Gasps, stares, shock. A woman near the front pressed her hand to her mouth. Even the host dropped his pen. Barron opened his mouth. Nothing came out. His eyes flicked between Jasmine and the folder. Disbelief rising. Jasmine didn't gloat. "I won't repeat everything written here," she said, "but this is verified, cross-checked, authenticated by specialists in genetic mapping." Barron tried to speak. His voice was barely audible. "This is fake. This isn't..." Jasmine gently placed the page back into the folder. "You don't have to accept what's written here tonight," she said. "But before you try to question my identity again, you should know. Your own story isn't as simple as you pretend it is." The audience froze. The silence was deep. Barron stood, pale, visibly shaken. And then Jasmine took one quiet step forward. "First," she said, "find your real mother, before you attack mine." The murmur that followed wasn't just noise. It was realization. Barron's face dropped, his usual smirk gone, his words tangled, his hands trembling. He had walked in thinking he could outsmart her with subtlety. Instead, he was undone by her preparation, her calmness, her truth. She didn't shout, she didn't belittle, she didn't need to. Her strength wasn't just in what she said, it was in how she waited. Barron had tried to define her with a whisper. She replied with a revelation. And now, the story wasn't about what he had said. It was about what he had revealed, about himself. As Barron stood, exposed and unraveling, Jasmine folded the papers neatly, her expression unchanged. She looked at him one final time and said, "Identity is personal. It's not a weapon. And when you use it to diminish someone else, it usually reveals more about you than them." Barron looked down. No comeback, no confidence, no control. And Jasmine? She walked off the stage. No applause, no fanfare, just the quiet understanding of a room that had just witnessed something unforgettable. Barron came in believing he could control the narrative. Jasmine came in prepared to speak when it mattered most. And in the end, that made all the difference.